Welcome to Short Conversations with BRF Ministries. BRF Ministries is the home of Anna Chaplaincy, BRF Resources, Messy Church and Parenting for Faith, and we aim to inspire, equip and support people of all ages to grow in Christian faith. Find out more at brf.org.uk. Welcome back to Short Conversations with BRF Ministries. We really hope that you're enjoying our new podcast and all of the insightful conversations that we're having with our authors. Today, we're going to be chatting to Gemma Simmonds, who's the author of this year's BRF Advent book, Donkey Roads and Camel Treks. Gemma is going to be sharing about the significance of Advent, how we can be deepening our understanding of the Christmas story, as well as the impact of Christmas consumerism. So let's head over and hear what she has to say now. Gemma Simmonds is a sister of the Congregation of Jesus and a senior research fellow at the Margaret Beaufort Institute of Theology in Cambridge, where she teaches pastoral theology and Christian spirituality. She has worked as a spiritual director and retreat giver, training candidates for religious life and ordination in the Catholic and Anglican churches. Gemma is a regular religious broadcaster on the BBC Radio and has published extensively in the areas of spirituality, religious life and ecclesiology. Today we're going to be talking to her all about encountering God over Advent, something that she explores in her new book, Donkey Roads and Camel Treks. Gemma, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Could you start by telling us a bit more about yourself and the background to Donkey Roads and Camel Treks?
Okay, so you've heard that I'm a Catholic nun, and certainly when I entered religious life at the age of 18, I thought my life would be fairly mapped out in front of me. I entered an order that's chiefly been concerned with education for the last 400 years or so, but things didn't map out quite the way I expected, and I've ended up being a volunteer prison chaplain in Europe's largest women's prison for 25 years, a chaplain to 2 universities, and travelled massively and extensively all around the world. So I think it's about being in the hands of the God of surprises. And I think Advent actually is about us looking at the God of surprises and how the God of surprises works in the lives of human beings. And while I suppose like most people, find surprises a bit disconcerting sometimes, it's certainly been an adventure. And that's partly why I chose the title of Donkey Roads and Camel Treks.
I love that, God of surprises. That's such a brilliant title and so true.
Well, it's the title of a wonderful book that was written by a great Jesuit writer called Jerry Hughes, who's since gone to God. But he wrote this wonderful book where, he talks extensively about the way that God takes us by surprise, and that God doesn't work along kind of railroad tracks, that go straight. He takes different routes and different roads, and we've only got to look at the Christmas story and at the Advent story and all the scriptures in the build up to Advent, where we keep seeing God taking people by surprise, And I think the other reason why I chose Donkey Roads and Camel Treks is that in Christmas cards, it all looks so easy and it looks so gentle, and there's Mary looking happy and dear old Joseph plodding along and the donkey looking, warm and furry and fuzzy. And actually my experience, certainly of camels, is that it's agony. I went up Mount Sinai on a camel during a sabbatical that I took in 2019. And they said, look, we're going to be walking all the way up Mount Sinai. And I thought, oh my days, there's no way I can do that. But, for those of you who don't quite feel you can walk all the way up Mount Sinai, you can go up on a camel. I thought, okay, camel's, nice and furry and it does the walking for me. I'll be fine. It was agony.
Oh
It was the
no.
most uncomfortable thing I've ever done. And again, the Christmas cards, you see the three wise men going along the desert. They look really great. Well, absolutely nothing doing. And these camels were kind of snorting and camels don't move in a smooth way. They're forward and back. And particularly if you're going up a mountain and round rocks, you're constantly stumbling. I mean, every bit of me felt bruised by the time I got up to the top of Mount Sinai. And I thought, this is a little bit like Advent as well. And about the Christian journey. There are lots of bumps and bruises along the road.
Yeah.
And we'd be lying to people if we said otherwise.
Yeah. Oh, it's a brilliant title. I think that's so true about, as you said, the Christmas cards make it all look so perfect and clean and sparkly, whereas the reality.
It probably stacked. I mean, poor
Yeah.
Mary, can you imagine having your first baby, in a stable among all the manure and the, oh my goodness me.
Yeah.
And poor old Joseph, he must have been frantic. Apart from being completely baffled as to where this baby came from in the first place, and all of that. And I think, I wanted to write a book about Advent that was real, about the Christian journey and about the journey of faith and about how baffling and surprising and sometimes uncomfortable, but sometimes fabulous it can be. And the surprises can be wonderful and they can be pretty terrible. And that's how human life is, and that's how the life of faith is.
Oh, it's a brilliant title. Yeah, so speaking of Advent, why do you think that Advent is so significant?
Well, I think we've got to the stage in society now where everything's got to be instant. I mean, maybe this is me just being a kind of grumpy old lady, but it's as if you cannot wait for anything. If you want, if you've forgotten something in your shopping, you can ring up Uber or whoever it may be, and in 5 minutes it's at your door. The idea that you should actually have to make a bit of an effort for something, or that you should actually have to wait, or even, God forgive us, go without, and maybe, think of some other thing instead. It seems to be so contradictory to our culture today. And for me, Advent is all about delayed gratification.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to you a little earlier, and I'm very happy to kind of tell our listeners, I've recently been in Australia, and I was in my hotel in Australia one evening. It'd been a long, heavy day. So I turned on the television, because we do not have televisions in our bedrooms in the convent. So it's kind of quite a little thrill for me to have a TV in the bedroom. And it was prime time, mainstream TV, perfectly ordinary of an evening. And the adverts came on. And there was an advert for an Advent calendar from a sex shop.
I could not believe it when you told me said it. This is absolutely shocking.
Well, I just thought, I really thought after 25 years of prison ministry, after 6 years of university chaplaincy, I had heard it all, and nothing could surprise me, nothing could shock me. And I was clearly wrong, because I just lay there with my mouth gaping, thinking, what on earth are they thinking of? An Advent calendar from a sex shop. But, when I eventually got a grip on myself and stopped being so staggered, I thought, this is about people now seeing Advent, and I have a bit of a rant about this in the book, people seeing Advent as just an extension of the consumer fest that Christmas has become. And it's all, we can't wait for anything, and we've got to have it, and we've got to have it now, and we've got to have all of it. And funnily enough, talking to some of the students here about this, sex shop Advent calendar, some of them was saying, well, even the chocolate ones, like the one that you get on the 25th, the chocolate's not that much better than any of the other days anyway. So it kind of defeats the purpose. And I do think that there's a wonderful thing that Saint Augustine says about desire. Now, Augustine was quite a lad really when he was young, and he is the one who, after all, made up the prayer, "Lord, give me chastity, but not yet," which is an honest prayer if ever I heard one. And he says that the whole life of a good Christian is holy desire. What you desire, you cannot see yet, but the desire gives you the capacity. I just think that's a brilliant line.
That is a really brilliant line.
Gives you the capacity. And if that's true, then us doing Advent properly is about us over a 4-week period increasing our capacity to receive the grace of God when it comes. And to really know Jesus when he comes at Christmas as God with us. And I think that's why for me Advent is so important, because it's about increasing desire. It's not about stuffing the space with all sort of things we really don't need or want, because that does not increase our capacity, that actually decreases our capacity.
Yeah, and all about the preparation and sort of getting ready, isn't it? And when you've got those things every day, it takes away from all of that.
Yep.
Sort of reaching that end goal of Christmas, isn't it? And I think, as you were saying about the Advent calendars earlier, I was thinking, even the last few years, they've gotten so much more extravagant. And I remember when it was just a little picture behind a door, and it was so exciting to see the picture. And then obviously the chocolate ones came in, and then it seems that everyone is everyone is their own ones, and they're hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and it's a real thing, which is wild. It's wild. And I guess we spoke a bit about sort of consumerism, and in the book you talk about Christmas consumerism, and the reality of sort of social issues that are going on. Can you expand on that a bit more? Tell us a bit more about that.
Sure. I mean, I did a radio broadcast last year in the run up to Christmas with 3 other really brilliant colleagues from different churches. One who was an Anglican vicar, one who was a member of the Salvation Army, different people. And they were saying that for many people, Christmas is actually a very difficult time of year. If you have been bereaved recently, then actually, it's a time of year where there's so much emphasis on being together and family and all that can be very hard. Or if you're somebody who's on their own anyway and doesn't have much family or doesn't have anyone to celebrate with, then I think it can increase your sense of isolation and loneliness. Or we know statistics show us that applications for divorce go up in the new year, very often because people have been, shut in at home for a certain amount of time with their partner or with their family. And it's just the straw that breaks the camel's back. If there are tensions within the family, God help us, if there is domestic violence within the family, then the mixture of a lot of alcohol flowing and being shut up with family, for several days, can very often increase domestic violence. So it's not the case that everybody has a sort of television happy Christmas. On the adverts, it's all about happy families and inviting people in. And actually, even for families where they are happy and it is good, the financial pressures, because the more the advertising industry lays stress on Advent calendars that cost £200 because they're stuffed full of goodies, or this year's must-have
Yeah.
Well, what about families that can't have that, and that's one of the reasons why, certainly in my community, and I know in many Christian households, we have a reverse Advent calendar. So we have an Advent calendar where you take out a little bit of paper on the given day, and it has something written on it like, a bag of sugar or a box of matches or a bottle of shampoo or a tin of beans or whatever it may be. And you go and you buy that at the supermarket, and we put it in a box. And then, at a given time, we take the box to the food bank, or we take it along to the supermarket where they've got boxes for food banks. Whether it's nappies or whatever it may be, that, parents who want to give things to their children or want to give things to each other and just can't. Well, there's a bit of a gift there for them,
Oh, I love that. That's such a lovely idea of a reverse advent calendar. That's really special.
Yeah, I think so.
And how do you think this sort of consumerism will impact people, and how do you think we can sort of practically respond to it?
Well, I mean, I do think there is the sort of, we need to be able to be mindful about what we buy and what we consume, and therefore, to a certain extent, resist the idea of Christmas just being this massive consumer fest. Because apart from anything else, I don't know what it's like where you live, but I noticed this time last year in Cambridge, I mean, Boxing Day, half the shops had taken down their Christmas decorations because, let's move on to the next thing. And it's so sad.
And it's about consuming in the sales, and
and if it's not, Black Friday or Black whatever it is, right up to the 25th of December, immediately it's the sales. Oh, get the things cheap. And again, in the days when we had the 12 days of Christmas and we celebrated between Christmas itself and the Feast of the Epiphany, January the 6th, there was time to enjoy, the gift of Christmas. But there was time to enjoy it because in the time of Advent, we'd had this increase of desire, an increase of hope. And, if you're to ask me, what do you want for the world more than anything this Christmas? I want hope. I'm on Facebook, and I think a lot of people are. Well, people of my age, anyway. I think the young think it's just for grandparents, but and constantly people. I mean, I have friends living in Palestine. I have friends living in Sudan. We have sisters living under bombardment in Kiev, in Ukraine. Every day you open, there's terrible, terrible news about awful things happening around the world. And what I want more than anything else is hope. So I think Advent is also about if we concentrate on the scriptures, they're beautiful scriptures in Advent. I mean, gorgeous. And the build-up of hope and the build-up of a sense of God's promise. I just think there's so much more comfort in that than, oh gosh, another bar of chocolate or whatever it may be.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's
Don't get me wrong, I love chocolate, but
No, don't worry. There's no judgment there.
Yeah, any listeners who want to send me chocolate, you've got my address.
And how do we think that the birth of Jesus can be so significant in this area?
Well, again, I think a lot of it is to do with the kinds of questions we ask. What do I want to be born in me this Christmas? What do I want my life to give birth to, or God to give birth to in my life? I mean, there's always a particularity, I suppose, for me, and this is a very personal thing. I became very ill in my late 20s, early 30s, and had to have a full hysterectomy when I was 35.
Wow.
And I think that's a big thing for any woman to have to deal with. But I mean, for me, in a sense, I'd already long ago made the decision that I was going to live my life as a nun, so I wasn't going to get married anyway. But all the same, it was a sense of loss. And I remember a very wise, he was a lovely priest and hospital chaplain, saying to me, actually, the fact that you've promised to give that side of your life to God and that you're not going to get married, it still doesn't mean that this is not an important thing. So take it seriously. And maybe a question to ask God is, what do I want to give birth to for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
And I found that a really significant question. And it's a question I ask myself every Christmas. And I think, the answer to that is different every year, but it's also different at different times of our life, But I do think that the invitation to Christian discipleship is an invitation to give birth to new life in some way in the world. And we do that by just being present to people, acts of kindness. And they can be really little acts of kindness, but they can be very significant to people.
Yeah, that's so true. I think it's never sort of underestimating the impact that something can have, no matter how big or small it is.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a memory of in the immediate aftermath of the really strict lockdown, when we were at last allowed to go out and use public transport and stuff, I had to go to London, and I went via London Bridge station, which is just massively. I mean, London Bridge is huge. I think there's something like 4 million people go through the station every day, or something just mind-boggling. And there I was on London Bridge station, and all these. It felt really spooky because I couldn't see any other passengers except me, and then I was on the station with all these escalators going up and down, and nobody on them, And I hadn't had any breakfast, and I was gasping for a cup of coffee. And I thought, oh Lord, I wonder if I'm going to find anywhere on this station that sells coffee. And there was one little cafe open, so in I went, and I asked for a cup of coffee. And it was a very young man, he looked early 20s, who was serving me, and he had a name badge. And the name looked Hispanic, and I speak Spanish. So I said to him in Spanish, are you Spanish? And he said, yes, I am. Are you?
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, no, actually. But, and I talked to him about it. I said, well, look, what are you doing here? Have you been here all the way through lockdown? And is your family here? Are you on your own here in London? And how are you in touch with your family? How are they doing? And we just had a chat about family and stuff, And eventually he gave me my cup of coffee, and there was a cake with it. And I said, oh, I didn't order a cake. He said, no, that's from me. That's for free. And I said,
so kind.
Are you giving free cake to everybody who comes to your cafe today? And he said, no, I'm not. But you are the first person in 3 days who has spoken to me and asked me how I was. This was just a boy who was far away from his family and lonely. And someone had bothered to notice his name and try and say something in his own language and just asked how he was,
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about, that was a Christmas moment. That was a God with us moment. We didn't talk about God. It was just, one human being recognizing another.
Yeah. And especially in those lockdown days, wasn't it?
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
Like you said, it's so strange.
Absolutely. There was nobody around, but I think it's also not just about lockdown days. I think for some people, every day is a lockdown day.
Oh, absolutely.
No one talks to them. No one notices them.
And in a way, in lockdown, it was sort of highlighted, so that it was maybe people were more aware of it. Whereas perhaps now, people assume everything's gone back to normal and everybody's fine, and those people are almost forgotten about more because there's that lack of awareness, perhaps, about it.
Sure. And I mean, for me, if Christmas is, the wonderful, wonderful names that Jesus has, but, Emmanuel means God is with us. And, if we are going to be Emmanuel people, if we are going to be God with us people, then I think the first thing our conversations, I don't necessarily think it's helpful to everybody to start preaching the gospel to them first out, but we preach the gospel just by being kind,
Yeah.
by being human, by noticing, by being present. And I did learn in lockdown, and I've tried to keep it going. Just every time anybody does anything for me, whether it's, the bus driver or the postman or whoever it is, just to say thank you for your service, or I really appreciate your service. And people look so surprised when I say that, as if, no one's appreciated what I've done before. Well, I hope they have, but I think just those messages of appreciation and messages of encouragement.
Yeah. That's so impactful. Thank you. And we spoke a bit about this previously. You mentioned hope. But why is hope so important as we engage and journey through Advent, both at sort of individual, community, and maybe more of even a creation level?
Oh, I think because I suspect that every era, every age thinks it's the worst time, or things have never been as bad as this. In the business world, there are all these really weird acronyms they use, and one of them that's current in the business world at the moment is VUCA, VUCA, and it stands for the fact that the world, our current time, is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Right, okay.
And I think that's certainly true of the life we're living now. But gosh, it was pretty true in the days of Caesar Augustus.
Yeah.
And golly, life was volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Whoa. And it was like that in the time of Henry VIII. And it was like that at the time of the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And I've no doubt that, when we were all living in caves, one caveman came out of his cave and saw the next guy coming out of his cave and said, "We live in a VUCA world, don't you think?"
Yeah.
But I do think that every era has its challenges, and it seems to me that, I work with students of all ages, but I'm very aware of some of our undergraduate age, younger students. They're very anxious. It's a very anxious time.
Yeah.
An anxious culture in a way that I don't remember my age group when we were undergraduates feeling as anxious as that. These are young people who have grown up since birth with the idea of kind of apocalypse now, in the sense of the climate change and climate threat. So the idea that the whole world, the whole cosmos is in danger, I think produces anxiety.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly in this country, this is the first generation that is likely to be poorer than its parents were. So, for a lot of young people, they're not sure there are going to be jobs. They're not sure they're ever going to get on the property ladder. Those kinds of anxieties are significant for anybody. But, when you're in your 20s and you're just starting out and people are beginning to say, well, you may never make it at all, I think that's very worrying.
It's a lot to carry, yeah.
It's a lot to carry. And then, more and more around the world, we have populist leaders who are spewing out messages of hate, whether it's racial hate or, hate of whoever is other, whether it's a religious other or a cultural other. That's frightening and worrying. And I think it robs people of a sense of trust in other people and of hope for the future of their country and of the world. And so I think, the message of hope is all the more important. And there is an emphasis on hope, from the very moment that Advent starts with the reading, comfort ye, my people."
That's brilliant. Yeah, no, thank you. It's so important. And I think you're right. There's always been pressures. But I think, as you said about particularly young people, I think there is so much anxiety in that, and just holding on to hope is so important. So thank you.
Well, and the message that comes across in the prophecies, whether it's Isaiah or, whoever it is saying, God is coming. And it's not just that he's coming, at the end of time or whatever. He's coming today.
Yeah.
He's coming now. And that's why I have a sense that Advent, I mean, it's a bit like that old advert for dogs, a dog is for life, not just for Christmas. Well, I think Advent is for life, not just for
Yes.
Christmas. Christmas is for life, not just for Christmas.
Yeah.
That God is with us. And, Mary's song, the Magnificat that we find in Luke, where she sings of in triumph, really, the Lord has done great things for me, holy is his name. And she rejoices in God, kind of reversing the way of the world. He's pulled down princes from their thrones and raised up the lowly. He's filled the starving with good things and send the rich away empty away. And, that sense that God can turn things round. Here's this young girl who has been told she's pregnant and she knows she can't possibly be. And, that the child she's to bear is the Son of God. What on earth does that mean? And how am I going to tell Joseph? And what am I going to tell my parents? And, all those questions she must have had in her head. And yet she proclaims, the greatness of God. And I think that's where hope lies. And, I was a missionary in Brazil for a while, and I lived in, among people who lived in favelas, in these terrible slums with absolutely nothing. I mean, I'd never seen poverty like it. And their favorite song, it was a song we sang at every meeting we ever had, was Mary's song, the Magnificat, because it is about a God who can turn things round. And these were people who had nothing in this world, but they had hope.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned in the book about sort of being chosen by God. And what does that mean for us in our sort of day-to-day lives?
I think, look, every one of us is chosen, by God, because I firmly believe that there's a me-shaped hole in the universe that only I can fill.
Yeah.
That's the truth for every one of us, because
absolutely.
There isn't another. I mean, most people would probably say, thank God for that. There isn't another Gemma Simmonds out there in the world. There isn't another Iona Gray out there in the world. There's just you. There's just me.
Yeah.
And, God chose to bring us to life for a reason. And, there is a definite service that we can offer to God. And that's the service. It's not so much, what we do as who we are and how we are who we are. And I co-wrote a book actually about, which is called Awakening Vocation, a Theology of Christian Call. And there's an American writer called Edward Harnenberg who writes in that book, I hear my vocation in the harmony between the path that is before me and the mystery that is me. And, I just love that, because my sense is none of us have got it all mapped out. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen this afternoon, let alone next year, but the harmony and the path that is before me. And at one point in my life, I was a Spanish teacher, and there's a wonderful Spanish poet called Antonio Machado, who was writing in the 1930s, and he wrote this poem, and he says, traveler, your footsteps are the path and nothing else. Traveler, there is no path. You make the path by walking. There is no path in the sense of we don't get it all mapped out. We've no idea what's coming next, but we make the pilgrim path as Mary and Joseph did on their way to Bethlehem, as the wise men did on their way to Bethlehem. The whole of Advent is about people making the path by walking.
Yeah.
Or indeed about people like Herod, wanting to have the path all mapped up and deciding they're going to take it into their own hands and force the path by getting rid of anything that lies in their way. And, that is not the Christian way of doing things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I think it's such a good reminder, isn't it? Because sometimes we can always want to know. I mean, I think it's a human feeling to want to know what's coming or how we can do things or what's ahead. But it is that reality of we don't know, and just that trust.
Absolutely. And Pope Francis, he wrote a wonderful letter. It's called an apostolic exhortation. In Latin, the title is Evangelii Gaudium, which is the joy of the gospel. If I can, it's just a little quotation that I find so encouraging every day.
Oh, please.
It says, "My mission of being in the heart of the people is not just a part of my life or a badge I can take off. It's not an extra or just another moment in life. Instead, it's something I cannot uproot from my being without destroying my very self. I am a mission on this earth. That's the reason why I'm here in this world. We have to regard ourselves as sealed, even branded, by this mission of bringing light, blessing, enlivening, raising up, healing, and freeing." I love that piece.
Quote.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
And I love that he doesn't say I have a mission, as if we could kind of decide, well, I'm going to leave my mission in the cupboard today,
Yeah.
He says I am a mission. So how we are, who we are, is the important thing. And what I love about the Christmas story is that that's as important for the innkeeper and the shepherds and the people who came in from around Bethlehem to look at what was going on in this stable, It's as important for them as it is for Mary and for Joseph.
That's such a good reminder. Such a good reminder. Yeah, no matter who you are.
No matter who you are, we're called to be who we are, and that is the mission. That's it.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's been brilliant, Gemma. Thank you so much. Just to finish, how can we sort of, deepen our understanding and our connection with the Christmas story and grow spiritually this Advent?
Oh, I think, the first thing is just to look at, if you can, look at the scriptures. They're really beautifully laid out in the lectionary, in the prayers of, every day. And whatever background you come from, the liturgical prayers of the day of the readings are really beautifully mapped out. But if that's not your thing, then just listen to the words of the Christmas carols, one of the things and again, it's another pet hate, so here's another rant. I hate that we start singing Christmas carols too early, because there is such fantastic Advent music out there. I mean, the Advent hymns, "Lo, he comes with clouds descending," my goodness, "Hills of the north rejoice." There are some, O come, Emmanuel." There are wonderful Advent hymns.
Yeah.
And just, even to read one verse a day and think, okay, what is this saying to me, and maybe sing it if you've got to, and if you can't sing, well, never mind, no one's listening, sing it in the bath.
Absolutely.
Sing it in the shower, but to use the liturgy, I think, just as a way of, or put on a tape, or when you hear a Christmas carol on the radio, just to listen to the words and take in what they say and try and make that part of your prayer. I think that's as good a way of deepening our understanding of Christmas as any other.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. It's so true about actually listening to the lyrics, because I think often, because we're so used to the carols that we hear and the songs that we sing, that we just merrily sing them away, and we don't actually think, hang on, what am I singing? This is amazing. So thank you. That is a brilliant reminder, I think, that a lot of people, well, definitely myself, can take.
And read my Advent book. My goodness, why not?
Just read Gemma's Advent book. Exactly. Oh, Gemma, thank you so much. This has been such an insightful conversation, and I have definitely taken away so much from it. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. As we said before, Gemma's book, Donkey Roads and Camel Treks, is available now from BRF Ministries, and it is our 2025 Advent book. So do go and have a look. And there are some brilliant readings and reflections in there. So yes, do check that out.
Thanks, Emma. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gemma.
God bless.
Thank you so much for listening to our conversation with Gemma. It was absolutely brilliant to have her on the podcast. You can find the link to her book, Donkey Roads and Camel Treks, in the show notes, as well as all of the places that you can find her online. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you again in a few weeks.